maybe another 1 minute for people who wants to join in, then we will start. Thank you very much for joining me on a Friday night, especially the last weekend before the heightened alert or the new restrictions start again. Thank you very much. Those who are rushing out now to get your last social gathering, please do so. But I hope you can still listen to me. But I think most parents will be like me, staying at home. Okay, so without further ado, today I am going to talk to you about children's footwear. Okay, and this is in collaboration with Physio and Sole Clinic and Two Little Feet. Okay, so first of all, hello, I'm Fiona. I'm a podiatrist. I've been practicing for the last 12 years. I'm here because I love feet and shoes. In general, I specialize mainly in children in my practice. So I've been doing Physio and Sole Clinic for the last 8 years, and that looking at children's feet is what I specialize in. Not only that, and I have so many parents asking me about, footwear. So today I compiled the top 5 questions that parents ask me all the time during consultations, and I'm going to share with you. And I'm very honored to be able to collaborate with Two Little Feet. They sell children's footwear to bring to you this presentation. So I firmly believe that foot care and awareness actually starts from young. I have a lot of adult patients coming to me in their 30s, 40s, and telling me that, no one tell them about what the features of good footwear, to wear less heels, So, but I think the times are changing. So just like with dental hygiene, we get better over the generations. I hope foot health awareness will also get better with our next generation. So here I am presenting this to you. All right, so without further ado, today, first question I'm going to I'm going to share with you about is, when should my child start wearing shoes? Is it during crawling, protect your feet? I'm going to talk about that. And then secondly, my child only likes to wear slippers. Is it normal? Okay. And thirdly, where do I find shoes with arch support? I think my child is flat-footed. And fourth, how long can my child use the shoe for? And the last question, which is the most important question, is what's the best shoe? How do I find the best shoe for my child? Okay, so today we're going to cover these top 5 questions. All right. So in the midst of me covering this presentation, if you do have any questions, please post them onto the comments, and then we will screen through, and I will answer these questions at the end of the presentation, towards the end of talking about all these 5 questions. And if you do find at any point in time that whatever I'm talking is interesting, or you feel that it is beneficial to you, please like and share. That will be very helpful for the rest of the parents, I suppose. So there it is. So first question is, when do I start wearing shoes? When you probably have received those cute little shoes in your first 3 days of delivery, when people send in the hamper, with those cute shoes. So you'll be thinking like, and they're so small size. So you're thinking, can they wear 3 months, 6 months? When is a good time? Or is socks enough? So that is a very, very important question, and I'm here to answer it. Okay, so first of all, most of them, this is what we call, the term is actually called pre-walking shoes. Okay, so pre-walking shoes are generally shoes that are quite flexible and soft sole, but of course, in the market, if you do Google pre-walking shoes, you will come across like adult sports shoes, but in children's size. Yes. So that is one part of it. So then in general, pre-walking shoes are like just mainly shoes for young children. Is that the case? What kind of pre-walking shoes are good? So, but in general, most pre-walking shoes that we see in the market are flexible sole. They are quite broad based. Then you'll be like thinking, what's the difference between this one that looks like a sock and this one that looks kind of like a shoe, or this one that is like a inbreed, you know what, when do you buy it? Okay, so whenever we decide when do we buy shoes for your baby, we have to look at the milestones. Okay, that's very important. So I'm sure you guys generally babies start to crawl from 7th month onwards, from the 7th month, sometimes earlier 6 months. So we don't look at the time, like, or if don't panic when the child is not crawling at 7. There is always a range. Okay, but in general, between 6 to 8 months, they'll start crawling. So when crawling and standing, you know, then you realize that, hey, the shoes that people start buying you can fit already. Maybe, you know, when they're crawling at home, maybe I should protect their tiny toes that look so fragile and so cute. I need to protect it. But then I need to alert you that actually that's not a very wise way to protect the toes, because when they're crawling, they're actually hyperextending their toe like this. And no matter how flexible the pre-walker shoe is, you are still hindering the toe joints. So that is really not recommended. So I know your intention is to protect the child's foot during crawling. So there is really no need for you to buy pre-walking shoes when they are at the crawling to standing stage, especially when they are at this, you know, they're changing their stance from crawling, then they are trying to whip up their fat legs, you know, up. If you do wear a shoe, then that's going to block their movement, you know, and more often than not, you'll realize that the pre-walking shoe comes off, you know, so it's more of a hindrance than a help. So for children that are crawling and standing, my suggestion would be to wear the socks with nubs. Okay, that will be enough already, nothing more than that. Okay, right. So then cruising. Okay, so cruising is when they're not walking, they have to hold on to something to be able to stand and walk a few steps. Now, in general, cruising child, if you look at their feet, when they lift up their foot, they are normally, the toes are pointing down. Okay, they're not really pointing up. Okay, so at this point in time, their muscles and the neural pathways have not yet developed for that action of ankle dorsiflexion, this flexion to happen. So in adults, we do heel to toe walking. That's very normal for us. But in kids cruising, we don't see that. And so that's why you will see that their thigh have to flex all the way up to be able to lift up. So which is why we see this action here. So when you do buy them shoes, okay, then it's also not wise because it's heavy, they can't clear the ground properly. So with that, my suggestion would be to wear the socks as well. Then your question will be the socks. Is it okay if it's ankle or can you go higher? My suggestion will always be to go above the ankle. That would be the best, so that it doesn't fall off that easily. Okay, so that's one thing. So when it's cruising, especially when you do see that the feet drops off, the toes point down, and they barely clear the ground, then my suggestion would be to avoid wearing pre-walking shoes that have like a very broad and thick rubber outsole. It's actually, the intention is good, is to protect your toes. You know, kids kick everywhere, you want to protect bruising from the toes, but at this point in time, I would think that with that kind of feature, you will be causing the child to trip easily because the child can't lift up the foot. Okay, so if the child is at that stage and you want them to wear something, then my suggestion will be to wear something that the front has no such rubber outsole, so that there's no friction and they can clear easily and it's lighter. Okay, so then walking wise, so same thing, it doesn't mean that when they're walking independently, that means that they can do the flexion already. So if they are not, then same thing, you should be looking at footwear that has very little I think that is the maximum. You shouldn't go further beyond because they want to clear their foot. You don't want them to kick that much. Okay, you don't want that to happen. And so same thing, avoid those with very heavy, bulky forefoot that's meant to protect. If you do see your child being able to do a heel to toe, normally it will be between 15 to 18 months, then you can consider then a footwear like that, where then that can also protect their toes, and that will make the shoe a lot more durable. Okay, then you probably only just need to buy that one pair. Okay, so I hope that answers your question on when to wear pre-walking shoes. So to summarize, crawling, standing, no. Cruising, yes, but certain kind of features, walking, definitely, you can consider pre-walking shoes. Other important features is you have to follow the shape of the foot. Now, in general, in the market, most are good enough to that they are normally quite broad. You know, shoe manufacturers aren't that silly to make very pointy ones, and generally, you know, fat shoes look cute, so they are cute. But sometimes your child's feet are not that broad, so you have to don't just get the widest. You have to ensure that you are following the shape of the child's foot, okay, and it's deep enough, okay, and that we are looking at adjustable straps. So it could be a Velcro, okay. So when that happens, then we want to have a very big opening such that you don't have to squeeze the foot to go in. It's rather easy. And then you need to have a soft counter. This shouldn't be that hard. There's really no need to, because at that point in time, with the milestone, with the kind of walking we don't really need to protect the heels. If anything, when they walk, they will mainly be tiptoeing. So this part should be really quite soft so that you don't irritate or cause any blistering to happen. Okay, so let's move on. So I'm like I say, pre-walking shoes, you will see that there will still be manufacturers that are selling very small sizes or very stiff soles. So personally, I don't think they are good unless the child has a particular medical condition. Now, the reason why is because there's many nerve endings at the foot. If possible, it would be great for your child to be practicing barefoot walking sometimes at the sand, if it's safe, or on grass. Okay, so barefoot walking is important because it can stimulate the nerve pathways, the neural pathways to develop. So when you have too stiff a sole, the child cannot feel the ground, and the spatial awareness that they are getting reduces, the proprioception that they are trying to develop also reduces. So I'm really into very flexible and thin soles if possible. So how flexible are they? It's like really quite flexible, that kind. Yes, it goes all the way. So when we look at a proper adult shoe, I don't have it here, but let's look at a proper toddler shoe. We only want the toddler shoe to be flexing at the big toe, but generally for pre-walking shoe, it should be like the whole thing is flexible. There is no need for just one single point of reference to toe off. Okay, so moving on. So the takeaway tip for this is look at milestones. Don't look at the months, and your aim is to protect and not to hinder their gait, which is really different from how an adult walks. Okay, so second, I hope you are liking the content so far. If you do like the content, please like and share. Then people can also jump in and listen to what I've got to say about children's footwear. Okay, so second, my child only likes to wear slippers. Fiona, okay, can or not? You know, so it's a difficult thing to, I would love to say okay, but the truth is not really. Okay, so in general, if I have my way, I'll say no for the first 18 years. But let's be practical. And I think for children also, they can only willing to listen to you for that long period of time. So I'll say no for as long as possible, so for the first 10 years, okay? Now, the reason why is, now let's look at the x-rays, okay? The photo to the further to the left, okay? Now, if you look at it, you'll be like, oh, is that a abnormal foot? It's actually not. It's actually a normal x-ray of a newborn foot. Then you'll be asking me, where's all the bones? I tell you what, there's no bones. The bones are actually very soft cartilage, which is that's why it's not being captured by the x-ray. So when it's very soft cartilage, the bones are not formed yet. So we don't want any abnormal forces to be affecting how the bones are developing. And now the one in the middle is actually a child's x-ray at 3 to 4 years old. So again, you can see that, yes, there are more bones forming, but not a lot. And the one at the right where it shows a normal foot This is at 18 years old, where we don't see any more of the growth plates happening. And in between, when the foot is like barely bones, what is holding is actually ligaments, and the ligaments of a child is very loose. That's what enables them to be able to be cramped in your womb, and the ligament laxity gets better as they age. Okay, so when the ligaments, okay, what are ligaments? Ligaments actually are bone to bone. It's like a rubber band that binds a bone to bone. So for a child, the rubber band is like very, it's like a scrunchy, very loose, Then as it gets older, it gets tighter and tighter. Okay, so when you have a slipper, okay, where's the slipper? Okay, when you have slippers like that, which these are the top 3 kind of slippers that I see Singapore children wearing, which I hope will change in the future. So all this doesn't have a good fastening system. So when that happens, your child's toe grip like that, you can see that whitening of the big toe, you see the pressure happening there. And if you look at remember my previous slide about the x-ray where the bones are hardly there, it's just like, the bones are hardly there, where is it? Okay, let me just show. The bones are hardly there, you can't barely even see the bones. How do you, the cartilage, you are putting that pressure on soft bones, so that's not recommended. And secondly, when we look at thongs, they say, why not thongs? Why adults can wear thongs, but children no. Okay, a lot of times when you look at a child walk, the space between the first toe and second toe is very big. We call it a searching toe sign in podiatry terms, because the big toe widens to have a wider base for a child who's trying to balance to walk. So if the gap between the first and second toe is very big, then with a thong like that, that is even more unstable. They can't grip. So they're going to use their second, third, fourth toe even more. And as they get older, they will develop tight. If you see these tight extensors, so these extensors like grip like that, so you can see this and it becomes permanent. So your toes get a bit clogged, hammer toes, or we call claw toes, as you get older. So that's not something that we want to encourage. So I would say that's one big reason why we don't like slippers. And secondly, it's because now, imagine if a child has to grip like that to lift up the whole foot, right? So there will be some children that develop a dragging gait where they just drag their shoes when they're going, okay? So when they just drag their shoes, okay, then that gait is like a habit. No matter what shoes they wear, they'll have this lazy gait that drives you up, that drives you crazy. It drives a lot of my patients' parents crazy, okay? And then we have to go through gait retraining, how to do heel to toe again. So that's habitual. And secondly is they find that wearing slippers is so convenient. I don't have to sit down, tie my shoelaces, wear my socks, and they refuse to wear other shoes. So we don't want to inculcate this kind of habits. It's just like you not wanting our child to have like a piece of chocolate right before they go to sleep because of tooth decay. Similarly, we want to inculcate good footwear habits since young. So I would say no to that. So what are the alternatives? Singapore so hot, and why you get just going downstairs for 5 to 10 minutes. So as long, no matter what, if you want to wear open toe shoes, as long as you have like an ankle support, you have a fastening such that your ankles don't grip, the toes don't grip, then I think it's great, okay? Or you can even have something like where this is something like this to strap up. This is good enough, okay? So I think we just have to offer our kids alternatives and just don't buy the slippers. I think it will work. Now, in cases where it's very difficult for you to do so, then my suggestion will be for you to limit the time. Anything less than 10 minutes, it will be okay. But more than that, try not to, okay? So let's move on. So the takeaway tip for this second question is to limit the use really, and to really try to inculcate good footwear habits for our kids, which will last them a lifelong which will give them lifelong benefits, okay? And so far, I hope you like it so far. Like and share if you like my content. And third, let's continue. So where do I find shoes with arch support? I think my child is flat-footed. So this is a really loaded question. Okay, so I am first going to break it up into two. So firstly, what do you mean by flat foot? then parents will be like, when they go to the swimming pool or they step on the sand, I realize that it's like low arch. That means it's flat. And the child is like 3 years old. Then I first have to tell you that wet footprint test is not an accurate test to determine whether the child is flat-footed or not, because you can see this is a 2D image, but the foot is 3D, okay? So a lot of times, even if you show that it's a low arch, actually the child has a normal foot. So we may be over-diagnosing feet which is normal to be flat-footed. Okay, so my suggestion would be really to check that out. Don't be overly worried if you see that kind of footprint in a child. It is actually fine. You have to look for other signs and symptoms. So generally, okay, this is where the most difficult part of the whole presentation is, but I'm going to break it down. Just bear with me for a while. Okay, so podiatrists in general, we can use the foot posture index, and you realize that we look at different features from different angles of the foot. So it's really a 3D thing, okay? We look at the top, is the joint jutting out. Then we look at the back, okay? We look at the back and see what is happening to the joint. Okay, then we look at the heel. Is the heel slanted or is the heel not slanted? Okay, so in general, if the heel is very slanted towards this direction, then we give them a +2 grade rating. If it's in the center, we give them 0. If it's towards the left, which is a very high arch foot, we give them -2. So if there's 6 categories that we look into, your index can go from -12 to +12. So -12 is like the most high arch foot that you can ever see, and +12 is like the super duper flat foot, flattest foot you can ever see. Okay, so in general, our population goes between +2 to +5. +1 to +5. There's different, so different research article shows us different range. Okay, adult have a different range, child has a different range. So you see here, if this is like a normal arch, then the reading could be 0 or +1. But if it's a very flat, the line is very flat, then it will be +2. If the line is very arched up, then it will be a -2. Okay, so you get the index, right? Okay, so now let's look at a child's normal. Okay, so this is the bell curve. I always tell parents, follow the bell curve. Okay, now for a 4-year-old, 68% of children has a +6 rating. That means 68% of them are somewhat flat-footed. Okay, so we normally don't intervene when it's +6, +5. Okay, we intervene when they are towards +9 or +11 at 4 years old. Of course, this changes. Why do it change? Because when the child's foot is developing, initially is loose cartilage and loose ligaments. The arch is not forming up. Okay, but once the muscles develop, okay, and the fatty padding goes down, and the cartilage becomes stronger bone, and then we have tighter ligaments, then your arch will gradually form over the years. So when we are seeing it at 8 years old, 68% of the children will be a little bit flat-footed, but it's a +4 now, and we only intervene when it's +7 to +11. Then of course the high arch feet, the minute they are quite high arch, we will grab them out. Then we look at the neurological symptoms. But now, just for the purpose of this talk, we talk about the flat foot, which is more common. Okay, so that's the foot posture index. So if you don't understand whatever I'm talking just now, no problem. Okay, the take-home message is, even if it's flat-footed, highly likely your child is still normal. Okay, still normal. The most important thing is to look out for any functional issues. For example, are they telling you that they get tired? Like, compare your elder child or your second child. Your elder child can walk only 10 minutes, then say that I want to sit in the pram, I don't want to walk anymore, but the second child is like fine, they say that there's pain at night, or you realize that one foot looks a bit flatter than the other foot. There's asymmetry. So asymmetry is something that a podiatrist look out for. Okay, so if there are no such issues, then in general it should be normal. And also the flat foot, the arch develops over the years. If you see that at 3 years old is quite flat, then you realize that hey, at 6 it's still about the same. then you should set off a little bit of alarm bells, because we do not expect you wake up one day then suddenly from flat foot become normal foot. It must be a gradual process. So if you don't see a gradual improvement of the arch, then it's about time that you can look for a healthcare professional to understand more. Okay, so further forward. Okay, so if in the event so when will you need shoes with arch support? That is if, let's say, your pediatrician, your physiotherapist, podiatrist say that, okay, yes, you may have a flat foot structure, or you may have a foot issue that I need you to have arch support, but you do not probably need insoles yet. So that's when you need to look for shoes with arch support. There are certain sport shoes out there that has a inbuilt a geometry such that they are able to tilt the foot invert the foot a little bit to give that bit of arch profile. Not a lot, okay, not as aggressive as what a pair of insoles were, but there is a little bit. So if I can, there are a few brands out there, or you can look at pump shoes. If you see, right, the inner lining, can you see that there's a hump here that looks like a moon, like a ear? So that is like an arch support. So there are more actually, but there again, most footwear, their inner lining is, you think is flat, okay? But if you are looking at shoes with arch support, you are looking at an inner lining where they have like a bit of a cushion here, okay? Then of course, we talk about the popular sandals like Birkenstocks, or sandals with arch support. So these are the ones that you are able to commonly find. So you may need them when you don't really need insoles. So your healthcare professional have already told you that yes, you need insoles. Sorry, no, you don't need insoles, but let's try you on better footwear first. So that's when you may want to consider shoes with arch support. Okay, then that's when, like, okay, so if shoes with arch support is not enough, in generally, any kind of footwear with a removable shoe lining that is broad enough, let me see, okay, that is broad enough and deep enough, you will be able to fit in a children's insole with professional help. So when a child brings the shoe to me with the insole, then I have to make sure that I bevel to fit the insole inside the shoe. So if you look for a shoe that is generally more narrow, you can see at the top picture here that the arch is like peeking out of the shoe. But if you look at a shoe that is wider, then the shoe will sit better. The insole will sit better inside the shoe. Okay. So I need to have a disclaimer that it doesn't mean that if you wear shoes with arch support or you wear insoles means that you will develop an arch. Okay, it doesn't work that way. Developing an arch requires strength of the muscles. It requires flexibility. There's a lot of factors involved. Just wearing an arch, it's not like wearing braces, your arch will form back. And similarly, if your healthcare professional tells you that yes, you need to wear insoles or you need to wear shoes with arch support, don't be worried that that will make the child's foot lazy. It doesn't. It will help the child function better, and when the child function better, then the muscles can work better as well. So it's a fallacy to say that insoles will cause laziness, or insoles will not cause, will build back up the arch. It doesn't work that way, okay? So, but that is an entire topic in another day. If you are keen to learn more, I will share in my next webinar if I have a chance. Okay, so let's move on. So the takeaway tip for this question is consider whether your child really needs arch supports, because if they're not flat-footed, then there's really no need to. Then and secondly, most good shoes do not have arch supports. And if you really want arch supports, then the best way to give a child arch support is to then give them the insole, which a healthcare professional will be able to prescribe you with. Okay, so let's move on to the fourth question. How long can my child use the shoe for? Okay, so this is a very popular question, because we're like, can I buy like so that I only go shoe shopping like once a year? I don't want to go every 3-4 months. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, in general, the human feet grows like that. Okay, before 15 months, every 2 months, your child's feet will grow 3 to 4 millimeters. So that's about half a size, okay? Then between 15 months to 3 years, every 3-4 months, then the feet will grow 3 to 4 mils. And then from 3 to 5 years old, then every 4 to 5 months, the feet will grow 3 to 4 mils. Then the feet will continue growing until like January 14 for girls, probably 1 to 2 years after puberty, 16 to 18 for boys when the growth plate stops. And even though sometimes the bones stop growing, the muscle still grow. That means they can still grow in width. Okay, maybe not in length anymore. So you cannot just assume that, oh, you've already stopped puberty for 2 years. I don't need you to, you probably don't need. So because the muscles, the intrinsic foot muscles could have grown as they mature, or the child is getting stronger. Okay, so you always have to check. So based on the timeline I show you, every 2 months, if it's a young child, check. Okay, how you check? Okay, you can get the child to stand and then put your thumb at the base, at the front, not at the back. Don't go digging at the heel. That's not the correct way. Push the heel all the way to the back and press at the front, and make sure that the child is not like trying to shirk to avoid your pressure. Just tell them to relax and press. So it should be having one thumb width. So whose thumb? Generally your thumb, okay, not their thumb. Okay, so it's about 8 to 10 millimeters of space, okay, and from the longest toe. So sometimes you'll be surprised. The longest toe could be the 3rd toe or the 4th toe. You need to find out where's the longest toe, okay? Then, of course, if you're not sure, take out the shoe liner, put it there. Actually, that will be the most accurate way. And not only that, you'll be able to see whether the toes fit within the shoe liner well. And that's something you want, because then you not only get to check the length, you get to check the width as well. Okay, so then I think most importantly is the right size is important. So unfortunately, you can't just buy one pair of shoes, go like 1.5 size big and then expect the child to be comfortable with, and you don't have to bother yourself with shoe shopping for 1 year. You will have to make an effort to make sure that it fits properly. There is no other way about it. The best shoe is actually a shoe that fits very well. I mean, you imagine you wear a shoe that is 1 size bigger, it annoys you, right? So the same thing for your child. It's not going to be comfortable. They probably may not complain a lot, but it's not good for them. You don't want them to be gripping. And if you find that having to change shoes every 3-4 months is kind of expensive, I'd rather you go for a right fit than a good brand. So go for economical choices. One of my favorite places to go is to go Decathlon. Decathlon has cheaper shoes. Just get the right size. I cannot emphasize that enough. Okay. So if you do shop online, okay, I expect that as a question. Not only you have to look at the length. A good shoe retailer should ask you to measure the width of your child's foot. Okay, and then generally you're measuring at the widest part of the foot, which is at the right after the toes, before the balls of the foot. Okay, and then so this is from 2 Little Feet website with their little blue lamp. So they actually do get you to tell you that you have to measure the width. So what happens if your width is out? That means this shoe is not for you. Don't squeeze. Okay, just move on. You may then not be able to buy online. Okay, so width is very important for online measurements. If online shoe retailer do not get you to measure the width, my suggestion will be, move on to another brand. There are many brands out there. Okay, so now another thing is, when do I not recommend a child to buy shoes online is when they have well, layman terms call it very fat feet, but it's actually not very thick feet. Okay, so here very thick. So this is professionally we call it a high instep. So a high instep is where the bones here is higher. So this is quite more normal. You see it's sloping down. So something that is very thick. Now this one you wouldn't be able to tell, because even with your footwear measurements, you realize it's more 2D. This portion here is the thickness of the foot. You will not be able to get that unless you go to a physical shoe store. So if you're unable to get it in online, physical shoe stores could be Mother Care, Mother Works, departmental stores. It doesn't matter. I'm already telling you the brand doesn't matter. It's more the footwear features that matters. So bring your child down, ensure that it's a good fit before you buy anything. Okay, so the correct size is very important. Okay, so in fact, this is a child. You will feel as though, is this really a 4-year-old child's foot? Yes, it is. Can you already see that the 4th and 5th toe is a little bit deformed? I can really see like a small talus bunions at the right after the toe. So that is at the 5th toe joint area. So that is already jumping out. So exactly what the child wore was this pair of Melissa shoes. She loved it. She wore it most of the time to match her dress. But when you have a child with a broad foot like that, this is not recommended. Why? Because that will your 4th and 5th toe will have to bend. And remember when I tell you that your toe bones are really not hard initially, if the child is wearing this when they're 3 or 4 years old, that's going to cause the bend to happen prematurely, so this is something very sad that I don't want to see. Now the question is, can this be reversed? Probably a little bit. So we are going to do a lot of stretching and we ensure good footwear, then it may reverse a little bit because the child is still young. Okay, so let's move on. So the takeaway tip is check every 3 months, which is important, and especially online. So the last one is, how do I find the best shoe for my child? Okay, now what is best shoe? Okay, there's so many features of best shoe. So first thing is the purpose. It must have the right shoe, right occasion. So if you want to buy different shoes, you have to buy 4 kinds of shoes or 3 kinds: casual sandals, walking shoes, sport-specific shoes if they are doing different sports, and lastly, shoes that make them happy. Not the shoes that are really very good, but shoes that will make them happy. Okay, I will talk to that a bit more about that. So why is this sport-specific shoes? You look at this and you realize that, wow, are they all sport shoes? But actually not. The dark blue one is actually soccer shoes. This one is actually a basketball shoe, and this is actually a running shoe. They have different features, and if you use a basketball shoes to do soccer, you will trip over yourself. If you use a soccer shoe to do basketball, you most likely sprain your ankle. So sport-specific shoes are important. So if you are to get a best shoe for the sport, you have to find a basketball shoe for basketball, football shoe for football. So that's one point. Feet. So I've already gone through feet. I'm going to reiterate again, the ease of putting on for kids is important, okay? And you have to have a fastening system. The Crocs, that kind of system, if it's non-adjustable, it doesn't amount to fastening, okay? And thirdly, stability. Okay, in our weather where it's raining a lot, my suggestion would be to look out for outsoles, right, that are really gripping very well, okay? They must be really gripping very, very well so that you prevent slips. So outsoles, right, that are not so deep, you realize the grooves are quite shallow or more unidirectional. So this one is like multi-directional everywhere. So this will be something that I will not consider in our weather. Okay, and not only that, if you have a child that has stability issues like gross motor issues, I would like to point out that the difference between this, you realize that the outsole and the midsole here is really very broad, and this one is more vertical. This one will be able to give you more support, more wider base of kick, if you can see that. Okay, so that is stability and weight. Okay, a lot of parents will say, okay, the shoe is too heavy, or the shoe, do I always get the lighter shoe? Okay, I just have to clarify. The reality is there's 3 types of footwear features, but in the real world, you can only pick 2. If you pick light and cushioning, it won't be durable. Okay, so I'm looking at more flimsy shoes, cheaper shoes, but they are light lah, okay, and they have built cushioning because you give up the durability. So you're not using a rubber outsole. Maybe the outsole is EVA, then it just doesn't do well with friction. If it's durable, and so that you have the proper outsole, you have proper materials, and you want cushioning, a lot of padding, then this shoe will not be light. But if that is what your child requires, then you don't need a light shoe. You need a durable and cushioning shoe. If it's light and durable, a lot of times then you'll realize that you compromise on the cushioning. So it's not that there's no correct answer to say whether it's heavy or light. It depends on the features, but very difficult for you to find everything light, cushion, and durable. You probably will pick two that stands out more. Okay. So breathability is very important in our weather, and I feel that in Singapore, children don't wear socks enough, which is very important actually for footwear hygiene in the humid weather. And if we are having a lot of shoes with breathability issues, then all the more we have to consider wearing socks, or look into shoes, even if you know that your child, right, is not going to be wearing socks, look into covered shoes that has mesh uppers so that it can vent better, so that we can reduce the chances of fungal infections, bacteria inside the footwear. Okay, and lastly, look at medical conditions. Okay, does the child need insoles? Does the child need arch supports? Does the child have tiptoeing issues? So if there's tiptoeing issues, I'm just going to quickly say here that we are looking at footwear, right? You see, I'm trying very hard, I can't bend the shoe. So there are footwear like that we suggest for tiptoers. And there's a reason why, there's a mechanical reason why we do that. So if you have children with certain medical conditions, then the footwear you choose is different from a child that doesn't have a problem, okay? Or if a child has a long short leg, then you need to look at a shoe with a very deep heel counter, okay? So tip number 5, what I want to say is best is subjective and depends on the circumstances. So with that, I will answer any of the questions and that you have. Thank you very much for listening to me so far. I'm sorry if I was rushing a little bit at the end. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask me now. I'm waiting for the questions. Okay, so I have a question from the ground. So for sandals, does it must have for ankle strap? Yes, you must have for ankle strap, because if not, there's nothing holding the child's ankle down. Your toes will be gripping, so really not, okay? And are Crocs really not safe for young kids? Crocs have actually different features. Actually, there was a photo that I showed you with the adjustable, like a sports sandal. It actually comes from Crocs as well, but I will not suggest the one that doesn't have an ankle fastening. Okay, so thank you for your messages. Thank you for your questions. So you have any thing that you want to ask me, feel free. I'm here to answer any of your questions. Okay, and how do I prevent ingrown toenail for my child? Okay, first thing is actually a child can sweat a lot in the shoe. Okay, so if you do have a child that has more sweaty feet, in general, the toes are more soft. The flesh is more soft, and the toenail will poke in easier to have an ingrown toenail. So first thing is to prevent ingrown toenail is you must make sure that they wear socks, and there is really not so much moisture in the shoe. And secondly, look out for shoes that if you grip, your toes are going to be hitting the ground, so that may increase the chances of ingrown toenail as well. Okay, is it safe to wear hand-me-down shoes? Okay, so you see, if let's say the shoe is like, I only wear 3 months, then wear off already. So, then cannot wear already. So what is it going to do? So can you wear hand-me-down shoes? So very importantly, look at the whether the outsole is still usable. So I actually have a sample here. Like if you see that it looks okay, while the shoe, okay, not too bad. Okay, firstly, it's already not a good shoe, but in the event if someone hand you down this shoe and you want to use it, okay, you look at the outsole, see what's happening. If the outsole, the grooves are not there anymore, then my suggestion will be no. Okay. How do I know if the shoes are comfortable? Listen to our child, very importantly. In general, if the child for some reason hate the shoe, then that is one indication. And secondly, look at get the child to wear the shoe, right, at the middle of the day when the foot is still quite swollen, it's bigger, then you wear them, and then after you take off the shoes and check whether there's any red spots anywhere else. So that can also be an indication. Okay, so are there any more questions? Okay, from Sunny, typically at which month and how long would the baby cruise for? So typically the cruising starts from any time from 9 months to 12 to 13 months all the way to 16 months. So 9 to 16 months. So if the child is still cruising and not being able to walk independently after 16 months, that's when you have to seek a healthcare professional, a pediatrician or podiatrist or physio that specializes in pediatrics to look at it. Okay, so they start from 9 and they cruise, depending, it should end by 16. Right. So what do I think of Prince Part shoes? Okay, what's Prince Part shoes? Okay, I have a photo now. Okay, okay, Prince Part, if you look at so people who, please Google it if you want. Okay, so Prince Part shoe, you see at the base is really very thick, and you realize that it is actually very high cut. So I think Prince Part shoe is meant for children with specific needs. So we do have children with special needs that needs to wear braces, AFOs. So this will be excellent for them, or they have medical conditions like hypotonia, cerebral palsy, then this will be great. But if we're talking about a child with a normal milestones, they are hitting normal milestones, I personally think that this will not be required unless indicated by your healthcare professional. So mixed feelings about putting powder on child's feet. Okay, first thing first, what powder? Okay, now, I do have parents asking me about cornstarch. Okay, I don't agree of that. Now, if you want to look for powder that have zinc oxide or aluminum oxide, and do it sparingly. Okay, rather than other than powder, my suggestion actually will be deodorant. Underarm deodorant, you can put it on a child's foot, but just not the same one. Just buy one for your child, put it by the shoe rack and use that on them. That helps. Also, of course, there are specialized anti-shoe perspirant that you can use. So, but then again, please check with a healthcare professional to ensure that there is no contraindications that is. So a lot of antiperspirants that you see in Watson's or Guardian, they may not be suitable for children. So please verify with your doctor or healthcare professional. So will powder block the pores? Powder doesn't block the pores. Powder will absorb the sweat. It should not block the pores. Okay, and in general, children's feet don't have those pores that we're talking. They're not because feet, right? The skin is very thick. Okay, so the pores, you don't worry about that. They do not block the sweat glands. The powder will just absorb the moisture. Then after that, you probably have to chuck it out and get new powder in. Okay, so from Fen, is flat foot hereditary? That's a great question. It is to a certain extent. So a lot of times I have parents coming in for flat foot problems, they have pain, then they tell me that actually they think that their child has as well. Then they bring the child in for consultation. Yes, why is it so? It's because loose ligaments that are hereditary, deformities of foot structure are hereditary. But there are certain things that are hereditary like scoliosis or long short leg. So, so for example, if you have someone with a limb length discrepancy, so in layman terms, I just tell you it's longer leg, shorter leg. So a lot of times the longer leg will have a flatter foot. Okay, so then is the flat foot hereditary? Yes, to a certain extent. I once had 3 generations. The grandmother came first, then brought the son and the grandson. They all had varying forms, bunions from like stage 1 for the grandson all the way to stage 4 for the grandmother. And then we realized that it's all the same cause. It was a longer leg with a flatter foot. So yes, it can be hereditary. So when is a good time to bring the child for a professional foot assessment is when, remember I tell you, when functionally you think that the child is not performing, like they run for a while, they want to rest, they want to, they don't like to be active. They're telling you that their feet aches, they really like foot massages, or they're waking up at night and telling you that their feet is really sore, and you realize that it's activity related, or there is asymmetry, or you realize that, hey, how come my second child looks different from the first? You can always you can read up more about it, and if you're not sure, then you have to bring it in for professional foot assessment. The reason why I think is because children to intervene, there is a window of opportunity. A lot of times after that, when the soft tissues adapt, I'm not saying that the feet gets flatter and flatter. A lot of times flat foot, it can be already fixed. It's born like that. But when the child is maybe 60% flat, maybe a +6, +7 on the foot posture index. But as they get older, because there is no intervention, the ligaments are a bit worn off. The muscles are a bit more tired. The ligaments are a bit more stretched. So the flat foot gets worse. Not because because you're not wearing insoles, the arch doesn't get formed, but there's soft tissue adaptations. So there's a window of opportunity that we can help to prevent that kind of soft tissue adaptations from happening. So between 4 to 7 is a very good age for us to intervene, because at that point in time, the children are not very sensitive. We can give them quite aggressive controls and they are normally quite happy with it. Anything before 4, I would say wait and see. A lot of times, unless you realize that one foot is very different or functionally they are tripping very easily, they're not stable, then yes, you have to bring them for a professional foot assessment. So if the child has confirmed flat feet, is not causing any issues, should we just leave it alone or get insoles? That's a great question. Okay, now so there's different schools of thought. In my opinion, if I assess that the child will have soft tissue adaptations, or maybe the child currently, the physical activity level is not there yet to cause pain, then that's why it's not any issue. But the question is, if we were to change the child's activity, then maybe an issue. So the parent also has to be aware of like, okay, so now the child is not doing any CCA, but but I know that they have a bit of flat foot. Then next year, or the child is joining track and field, or like is joining brownies or something that is a lot more weight bearing. Then that's when you probably have to be more aware, like, oh, maybe it's time for you to get a professional check to see whether we can give you something more supportive to use, to be able to help you reduce the chances of the discomfort or the problems that flat foot can cause. Great question so far. How young can a child get an ingrown toenail? 2 months, that is the youngest we have. I think I have a colleague that treated a 6-week-old infant. Now, a lot of times that, but with that has got nothing to do with footwear. That would have been caused by improper nail cutting. So parents, a lot of them, they're worried about cutting, right? So they cut and then they peel. So it's the peeling part that caused the ingrown toenail to happen. Yes, so anything, we have seen it younger, 6 weeks, yes. Okay, so is it recommended to wear thin or thick socks? Great question. Okay, in general, thin or thick socks? You have me stumped. Let me think. Okay, is it recommended to wear thick or thin socks? Okay, so it depends on how sweaty the child's feet is. If it's not very sweaty, then you probably don't need to get very thick socks to be able to absorb all the sweat. But in general, I'm not a fan of thick socks, because if you do have thick socks, when you just get a footwear that is just nice one time with, then is the shoe too tight. So something that is thinner will be better. But you also want to look for thinner socks, right? That's just not microfiber. You need to be looking for socks that is able to absorb moisture. I hope that answers your question. Okay, is it true that shoes will mold to the child's feet over time? So you shouldn't let your child wear second-hand shoes which have already molded to another child's feet. Yes, yes, that is mainly when you're looking at covered toes, covered shoes, okay? But in general, most children's feet don't have big deformities. We don't see bunions. We don't see claw toes in children's feet. So do they mold a lot? Not really. But if you're concerned, then don't wear it. So I would say maybe consider only using second-hand shoes where you realize that the upper is quite firm. It's not like those stretchy, you know, those sock liner kind of upper. Then yes, I wouldn't consider a sock liner upper shoe to be a good hand-me-down, but something like a sport shoe, where it's quite firm, upper, then yes, or a sandal. Yes. Okay, so does the weight of the shoes have an impact on the ankles in the long run? Yes, if it's very, okay, if the shoe is very heavy, then in general, your ankles have to flex more, right? So the muscle to flex the ankle connects to the shin, your shin muscle. So that can have an impact on your ankles in the long run. But then again, when you have ankles that are not strong, you have weak ankles, that means you have loose ligaments around the ankles. Generally, you're looking at footwear that have a firmer heel counter. So you're looking at something that is rather, if you apply pressure, it doesn't collapse as compared to this. Can you see the difference? Wait, can you see? Okay, this, can't see. Okay, so if you are looking at so when you have weak ankles, you want to look at a shoe counter, a heel counter that is really more firm. So when you have a firmer heel counter, in general, the shoe will be heavier already. So, but it shouldn't be that heavy until it causes a problem. So of course, the heavier shoes are like the dog Martens, but you probably wouldn't get your child to be running in a pair of dog Martens or a pair of very heavy duty like what's that? Boots, safety boots. Not right. So I would say that in general, in the market, there is no exceptionally heavy shoes that will cause a bad impact on ankles in a healthy person, in a healthy foot. Okay. Okay, so let's just go through last two. What types of shoes to wear if I want to bring my child to go for a hike? Now, if you want to bring your child to go for a hike, the shoes must have a very supportive high ankle to hold, so that because if there's anything rocky, then the shoe will prevent any bad sprains, and the base of the footwear should be have very good grip. Are ballet shoes okay? Will ballet be bad for baby feet? Okay, so just now the Melissa shoes that I show you. Okay, where's the Melissa shoes? I think you are looking at where's my Melissa shoes? Okay, so ballet shoes are not good for children because right, the shape of it doesn't work well for children's feet, which are still cartilaginous in up. Yeah, so if you see ballet shoes, for it to look nice, okay, you will realize that they will cut here. So then your toes will get bent. So my suggestion, and in general, when you use ballet shoes, you will always look for a smaller size because there's no way you can get one thumb width and then the shoe is still like can hold on to the foot. So in general, when you wear ballet shoes, you always will get at least one size smaller. So that is already not good for the toe. So my suggestion is no ballet shoes, but when we talk about happy shoes, definitely got to, shoes make children happy. So especially young girls. So these are the shoes that they can wear for short periods of time. For example, visiting a friend or going to the restaurant in the shopping center where they'll be spending most of the time sitting down. Then yes, go ahead and wear them for anything lesser than 10 to 15 minutes of walking. All of us do, there are shoes as for special occasions, and let's reserve this kind of shoes for special occasions. So last one, by Cai Zhenrong, my 2-year-old son doesn't like to walk and always want me to carry. Should I be concerned and bring him to see a foot health professional? Okay, so first thing first is maybe look at, so a lot of times is probably habitual, but what I will get you to do is remember what I talked to you about the flat foot. So have a read about it and see whether when you see the gait walking, is there anything out of the norm. But if you're unsure and if maybe I would imagine that 2-year-old now can be a bit too young. So I will suggest, unless there is a very big red flag, like totally don't want to walk, there is weakness, or last time like to walk but no, now don't like to walk, that there is regression happening. But if it has always been the case, my suggestion will be to keep encouraging, start to do a little bit more physical activities. okay? And then see whether what is hindering it. Is it boredom or a habit, or is it painful or uncomfortable? So then that's when you have to then see a foot health professional. And when they're a bit older, you'll be able to probe more symptoms. They'll be able to tell you that actually the foot is a bit achy. So please monitor your son. You may want to bring them to see a foot health professional after 3 years old. Okay, so with that, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for the questions. So I hope this has been helpful for you. And if it's all good, I hope to be able to share with you guys more webinars from myself and my colleagues in the future. So with that, I will end this live show. Thank you very much. Have a good night.